Okay, hello everyone. How are you all? I hope all of you are up with your preparation very strongly, right? And we don't have more. I mean, we just have few weeks actually, not even a month, but a few weeks left only for our CLAT and IELTS both of the examination. So I'm sure all your Josh would be high. I'm expecting that all your Josh should be high, right? Okay, so today we have another set of legal updates that we're going to discuss very quickly. We'll keep it all very briefly. And uh, okay, so I have few things that I'll be discussing later on. All right. So starting with very quickly, the very first and one of the most uh, interesting and awaited highlights of the legal area, right, of the legal world in India was the appointment of a new Chief Justice, right? Just few months back, we were studying about some other, our former Chief Justice, right, the appointment of him. But again, we have another Chief Justice now, one of the most celebrated Chief Justice of our country, that is our Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, right? He is appointed as a 50th Chief Justice of India in November. And uh, it- basically, why this here it becomes important is one aspect I already covered previously in one of our previous session when Justice UU Lalit was appointed. There we discussed about the appointment of judges, right? That becomes important. So with every constitutional kind of news or every legal development, we need to look at what can be the constitutional background or the legal background of it that a particular passage can hit, right? Now, one was about the appointment of the judges, Supreme Court judges, High Court judges, right? So I think that is already covered. Second is when we talk about particularly about Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, there are a lot of very, high stake judgments, very, important judgments that have been pronounced by the judge, by this honorable Chief Justice, right? So we will just go through the names of it. I'll just tell you about the names because I'm sure you would be aware of you would be having some idea of the reasoning of those judgments, right? First one was about the habeas corpus case. Then it was Justice D.Y. Chandrachud who was there in the bench when it was decided that how right to life should be taken care of during the emergency, right? That even during the emergency, right to life should be given apt protection, right? Other landmark judgments wherein our Justice D.Y. Chandrachud was uh, of prominence importance, be it the majority, be it his majority view or minority view, right? So there have been cases wherein he wrote a minority judgment. He was on the minority side, but still it was so strong that later on it was discovered or it was found out that how important those minority opinion were also there in that judgment, right? Now, so what all are the landmark judgments that we have for this justice? First one is about the euthanasia case, whether right to death is a death or is a right or not. Euthanasia case, right? There can be only few instances wherein euthanasia can be availed by a person, right? So there are a lot of terms and conditions attached to it. Entry of a woman in Sabrimala, this has been an issue since years now, and it is still continuing. This debate still continues, right? So Justice D.Y. Chandrachud is one of the uh, members of that bench who has been hearing all these arguments on the entry of women in Sabrimala case, decriminalization of homosexuality, Navteej Singh Johar case, right, abortion rights, Hadia case, medical college case, PIL of mandatorily playing the national anthem, right? The Kerala case in the cinema hall, whether it should be mandatory or it should not be mandatory, all of that. So he has been one of the members of the bench that decided upon these cases. Other thing that becomes important, these are just tactic GK that you need to be aware of, right? Which all articles do constitution covers the provisions with regard to these judges, 124 to 147, who was the first chief justice of our country, Justice H.A. Kania. Longest serving chief justice was our Justice D.Y. Chandrachud's father, and that was Justice Yashwant Chandrachud. And the shortest serving chief justice was Justice Kamal Narayan Singh. And our 50th Chief Justice is Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. Right? So these are just static information that you must be aware of. You never know when such, such small information can be useful for you at any instance. Now, second one is about the two-finger test. This again, our Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice Hema Kohli was there in the bench, and they decided upon this particular case wherein a challenge was made on the kind of test that is done to ensure a rape case, right, for the victim. So basically, there was a lot of arguments that were brought in the court, wherein it was said that an already tortured victim goes through another set of torture, right, when such test exists in the country, in the systems, even now, even in this century, when we have moved so much ahead in social terms, right? So there were certain grounds, there were certain rulings that were given by the court. First one was the ground of patriarchy, wherein it was said that all these tests, basically, they are all patriarchal in their character, in their nature, right? It all emerges from a patriarchal mindset that, uh, men should be the one who should be superior, women should be the one who should be inferior, and from there emerges a sense of sexism, and that is why it becomes very important. The court asked the government to look into it, and they asked for the removal of all these kind of tests from the medical education system and syllabus also, right? That was first. Second, the court said that if any doctor, any practitioner, anyone is found to perform such practice, he or she would be liable for misconduct, right? Medical misconduct. Third would be it was one of the very progressive point that was taken up by the court, wherein it was said that just because a woman has a history, right, of intimacy with men does not mean that she has the access to get raped, right? And that is why, just because it comes from an assumption of what, that just because a woman is active, she's inviting other people to exploit her, right? And that is why the court took a stand here that, since our society is progressing in terms of feminism, in terms of a shift from patriarchal society, right, wherein we are focusing on women and women's right, we cannot still follow these kind of regressive rules and laws against women to torture more, and that is why this test was banned by the judiciary, right? Then comes very interesting. So there was this first amendment that took place for in Indian Constitution. When it took place, it was about the expansion of the restriction of the right to freedom and freedom of speech and expression. Okay, so basically, when we talk about a right to freedom of speech and expression, there are certain restrictions to it. You must have studied about it, right? There are reasonable restrictions. Now, this amendment basically was introduced to expand the restriction, okay, expand the ambit of that restriction, right? And now such expansion is getting challenged, right? So we don't know what court is going to say about it, but since this matter has come into picture, we must know what was the first amendment of the Constitution. Why do we need to know? Because there can be a passage on it, right? There can be a passage on First Amendment, there can be a passage on right to freedom of speech and expression, there can be a passage on reasonable restriction also, right? So all these avenues, this is what I can see. These are the most I would say expected areas that can be hit from this legal development. So Article 19(1)(a) of fundamental right, they basically talk about the right to freedom of speech and expression, right? So the clause 2 of it talks about some reasonable restrictions, and there were certain changes that were done in the case of reasonable restriction only. First was reasonable word, right? When we talk about reasonable, it means that it's a vague term, right? We don't know exactly what can be reasonable as such. Of course, since then, judiciary has been giving their own interpretation through various judgments as to what can be reasonable, what cannot be reasonable, all of that. But still, it has been challenged that, listen, we don't know what is reasonable. This is a word that allows judiciary to just put restriction on the basis of the on the basis of the facts and circumstances that they get, and there is no concreteness in that. That is first, right? Second is uh, some narrower terms like public order, incitement to an offense, all these kind of words were inserted, which now basically it is said that it was against the state's power. It is the state's power to curb the freedom of speech and expression, right? And now the amendment, the amendment is trying to do that through amendment. We are trying to restrict it by imposing words like public order. To maintain public order, freedom of speech and expression can be curbed. To prevent incitement of any offense, freedom of speech and expression can be curbed. Or you cannot practice freedom of speech and expression if it amounts to incitement of an offense, right? You cannot practice freedom of speech and expression if it goes against or if disturbs the public order, right? So all these kind of points were taken up, right? Next is CAA. So we have been hearing about it since quite a few years now, and there have been discussion. Again, this discussion has emerged. So we need not go into the discussion as such. We just need to know what is it, right? So in very simple terms, there are certain specific communities, okay, and specific communities of specific countries. They have been given the right to get the citizenship of our country, right? Of if only if they have come to India or they have been living in India after a particular cutoff date. So each of them is having their own cutoff date. Each community, their country, respective to the cutoff date, they have their own cutoff dates. So if they have been, so there's one date that has been given. If they have been residing in India post that date, right? Only those communities, specific communities from those specific countries. We are not here, no specific community, no specific religion is being targeted, okay? It is only about targeting or basically providing such rights to specific religion or to specific community from specific country. Okay, so that is what it is all about. Now there can be a long passage on it, but this is the crux. Yeah, so now the passage will take any angle. You just remember this, that this is the crux of CAA, and you have to stick to it, and then whatever the passage says, you can accordingly go in that direction and solve the question, right? Now there's a sixth schedule, and wherein there is this concept of the inner line, and it has been included in CAA on the basis of the tangible material and the what historical reasons can we have, what kind of classification can we do, how national security plays out, all of that. Yeah. Now, Home Ministry recently simply said that this document, the CAA amendment, right? Now, this in any manner is not against law, is not against democracy or secularism of our country, right? So, anyways, that is not very much important, but there can be this angle also that can be taken up by the passage, right? And that's why I just gave you an idea about it. So that was it for the day. These were the legal updates that we had to cover, and that would be it for today's session. Thank you so much. And if you have any question, if you have any doubt, if you want me to cover anything else, if you want any other help, please let me know in the comment box, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you, right? And that would be it. If if you want to get the update of the further session that I come up with, please subscribe to the channel, right? So that you get that notification whenever I come up with the next legal update, right? Thank you so much and all the very best. Keep your preparation to the highest level and keep hustling. That would be it. See you in the next session. Thank you so much.